All information contained in this podcast is general in nature and does not consider your individual circumstances. You should consider the appropriateness of this information with regards to your individual objectives, financial situation, and needs. Welcome to Sharing More Than the Sheets, a podcast to help you and your partner make better financial and lifestyle decisions so that you can both focus on the things that you love. I'm your host, Michael Khouri, financial planner, green thumb, husband, and just dad. This segment is called Michael's Magic Moment. It's my opportunity to play a little snippet from one of our previous episodes, which resonated with our listeners, that I received feedback from, or I felt really had an impact on some people's lives. Hope you enjoy it. Mindset, mindset, mindset. It's something we hear all the time. It's thrown around all the time. We see it, we read it, and it's true. Mindset is a big part of a person's performance. It affects their performance. It affects the outcome of their performance. It affects how they deal with obstacles and challenges. It could be from a personal perspective, from a sporting perspective, from a competitive perspective, from work, employment, business, family. And it's something that, for me personally, I take very seriously. This week, I go back to an episode that I did back in 2023, talking about mindset, where I'm joined by an expert in her field, and she really digs down into the importance of our mindset in the way of our performance. Now, she is a head trainer of SportsMindset and the founder of SportsMindset. And she, of course, looks at it from a sporting point of view. But it's something that we can all relate to in our lives. So I hope you enjoy and learn something from it. Share it with a friend that maybe needs to listen to it. How would you define mindfulness, or even from a practical point of view?
From a practical point, when I think mindfulness, I just think of being able to be in the moment, whether that means throughout your training session, when you're focused on something, when you're trying to perform at a high level within your sport. It's just having the ability to shut out outside noise and be really focused in on the moment and what you're trying to accomplish. Awareness is half the battle. So having techniques that help you create that habit is really important. It's important within your training. It's important within your performance on the court, but it's also important within life. It's something that I've had to navigate throughout, and I'm happy to share that with all of my athletes now.
And how much does mindfulness play into it? Because I mean, on your website, you've literally got a quote that says, "Life is 10% what happens to you and 90% how you react," by Charles Swindoll. And we all know mindset's a big part of it. But I mean, what, in your opinion, what role does it play? It's because you can have someone that's highly skilled, and they'll probably outperform someone that's not as skilled usually. So, but at the same time, you hear about stories of, even like at a grand final football match, you see the footy players making mistakes, like really rookie errors. And normally it could be because they're nervous or because the mindset, like it's just their mind is playing on them.
Yeah. So I would say it's everything. I would say it's more important than your talent. It's more important than your skill set. From my experience, your mindset creates the foundation, and then everything else builds on top of that. And what I mean by that is you're prepared, or you have the proper techniques to perform at a high level if that's your foundation, if that's what you do on a daily basis, whether you're training for the Olympics, whether you're working on some kind of homework assignment, anything that you have, it's a habit. And so having the ability to really focus in on what you're trying to accomplish, to let all the outside noise go, whether it's a skill within itself, and it is the foundation of your success, whether it be within your sport or off the court. Yeah. And so for me, I would say it's 90% mindset, and everything else falls into that 10%.
Yeah, well, okay. No, I like that. And also when it comes to even the concept of working on it, working on the mindset, what are some ways that we can probably become aware of our mindset? Because would I be right in saying that sometimes someone can be in a really bad mindset and they don't even realize sometimes? And I know probably the best way to be aware of it is to have a coach or to have an outside, someone from the outside look at your situation. But are there any common trends? Are there common things that you see regularly of those that probably don't have the right mindset? And I mean, I'm
Yeah,
talking now even from like a general point of view. Sports, obviously,
yeah.
you could relate to more than anything, but just in general, like what are some things to normally be aware of?
We hone in a lot on your self-talk. So everyone's always having a conversation in their brain, and there's a lot of science behind it that we focus that we really use to create some of the techniques that we use with our athletes. But in layman terms, it's literally the conversation that you're having with yourself on a daily basis. So we use a lot of our training atmosphere. We put them in really challenging situations and see how they respond, whether you get frustrated, angry, you lose confidence in your abilities, whatever happens in those moments. And then we're able to make you be aware through conversation, through video, watching yourself, having your training partners talk to you or your coaches talk to you, and you're able to recognize what control you do have and then what control you don't. But you have to have a level of awareness as to how you're responding to these moments and what your habits are. And then we give you techniques to break some of the bad habits. So if it's, for example, if you have an athlete that is really, really getting angry when they miss shots. I'm using basketball as an example. It's my sport of choice. So if you miss a free throw and you get angry about it, some athletes are able to use that situation and feed and let it motivate them. Other athletes really struggle and it puts them into a bit of a hole, and then they can't really perform on the opposite end. So different concepts like next shot mentality. What conversation are you having with yourself? Be okay with mistakes, and practicing that not only when you're in training sessions, but when you're in practice, when you're doing things off the court, where you're at work, and you create a conversation, you create a voice in your head that's sending you positive affirmations as opposed to tearing you down, because usually you're your worst enemy or you're your biggest supporter. And if you can become your biggest supporter, the universe usually helps you out and puts you in good situations, and you just learn habits to help you perform at the level you want to perform at. And if your biggest critic, your self-confidence and your ability to perform at a high level becomes really, really difficult. And so just helping them, putting them in the fire, putting them in these situations where they have to become aware of what their habits are, and then make those adjustments as they grow and continue to be thrown into those situations.
Yeah, that's such a good example, because for me, when I think about it, even like, again, as putting my advisor hat on, I think about someone that's trying to achieve any type of goal or task or working towards something. In life, we're knocked back. We hit obstacles. Something will pop up. Someone will lose their job, or an expense will end up being 3 times as much as they thought, and it's very
Yeah.
easy to get discouraged.
Yeah. So it's all about how you respond. What are your habits? What are you saying to yourself? Are you giving yourself like excuses? Are you victim mentality? Like, what do you? And a lot of it comes from how you were raised, how your brain developed at a young age, and you have to become aware of what your processes are. And if you need to break those processes, you have to go through all the steps to basically rewire your brain and how you deal with things. But it's, if you put in the work, like anything, it happens. I've seen older athletes become significantly better at how they handle situations. And I've worked with young athletes that didn't really have too many habits, but helped them develop good habits, and watch them become, strong athletes and stronger than what their skill set says they should, a lot more successful in their field. So it's been a beautiful, I've been doing it now. Sports Mindset's been around for about 12 years. I was running it while I was playing. And it's just kind of grown and taken a life of its own as we've gone through.
Yeah. Do you think it's got something to do with being an optimist or a pessimist? Because some
Yeah.
people, but at the same time, I guess I mean, I consider myself an optimist. I always try to find the good things in situations. But saying that, I am the type of person that would get discouraged if I was shooting a hoop, if I was shooting a ball into a hoop and I didn't get it in, I can see myself
Mm.
getting discouraged as well. So part of it's probably self-belief.
A lot of it is. And that's what I mean. That conversation that you're having with yourself becomes so important. So if when you are missing shots, what are you saying? Are you focusing on concepts? Like, have you put in the work? Have you been training, and whether it be physically training, visually training the situation? So if you haven't, you can't expect greatness, right? That this is just doesn't work that way. But if you've been putting in the work, then you got to trust the work that you've put in and the processes that you've gone through. And you really have to have an ability to block out the doubt, and usually doubt just comes from fear of failure and things of that nature. So that's a whole nother conversation. But it's a learned habit that we use within our training situations to help athletes process. So it's just like training your follow through, working on your ball handling, getting your fitness at the level it needs to be in. You have to put in the work to get that done. This is no different. It's something that takes time. It's something that you got to break it down to build it back up. And if you put in the time and effort and work, then you'll see the changes.
Yeah, and I guess someone can have a bad day or a bad game as well, I'm guessing, because
Yeah, of course,
we all go through. I
everyone
think because
does.
I've just called myself an optimist, but I'll have days where I'm not feeling that optimistic either. So, and I think
Hey,
that's
it
where having
happens, but in those moments, the big thing is, how do you respond? So when you're having those bad days, when you're having a bad game, do you respond with, "Oh, I suck," or do you respond with, let's get myself back in the gym, let's keep working. I've done this before. Let's figure it out. How do you respond to those bad days, those bad games, those bad situations? And that's the big difference between someone successful and someone not.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, honest, as you're explaining that, I'm thinking of situations in my life, even personally, where I was really down and feeling sad about something. And then something just clicked. Like either it's a thought that came to my mind or someone said something, and instantly my attitude changed straight away. And again, it's just like it's that trigger. And I think having someone like yourself, when you're dealing with an athlete, sometimes either you know what it is or you're trying to find what that one trigger is or that one thing is that will sort of help someone just click, or just
Yeah.
or even in the middle of a game where a coach takes time out to talk to the players for just 2 minutes and suddenly they're playing completely differently than they were 2 minutes ago. These podcasts have been brought to you by Better Financial Planning Australia. To book a free 15-minute phone chat, visit betterfinancialplanning.com.au.
Yeah, everyone has a trigger, and everyone has, like, it's not, like I said, it's not one size fits all. That's the beauty of it. You see so many different ways to connect with someone, to get them to find a level of awareness within themselves. And there's different pathways to get there, but usually it's based on the athlete, how often they're in the environment where they have to process, how well they're able to build habits, and then the next thing is just how open they are to making changes, because ultimately you have a lot more control over your emotions and your thoughts than you think you do. And once you become aware of what you're feeling and what your triggers are, and how you respond to things, it becomes a lot easier to pull yourself back and separate from a lot of the fear and frustration that comes from being an elite athlete, being a successful business person, being a mother, being a father, being a student, all of it. So it's been a fun journey to watch, and it's something that I'm not perfect at it. I have my struggles throughout, but I do have some habits and techniques that I always can fall back on, and they've never let me down.
Yep. And you mentioned as well, like, the business, sports mindset, you've built it off some of your successes and failures over time.
Mm.
Are there a few that come to mind that you can share, a situation, not the specifics of the success or the failure, but just how you learned from that experience, or something that, or maybe a learning, or maybe you had like an aha moment, or just there was a situation where the penny just dropped and there was just this realization that you had, or there was or maybe a moment of inspiration where like, no, you know what, this is I thought this was what was going on, but this is actually what happened.
Mm. I
And I know I'm probably
remember.
putting you on the spot here, but I'm just if there's
No,
just
it's
something.
actually my mind went strict directly to one point in my career where I was hoping to make the WNBA. Had really good. I was in training camp with the Seattle Storm. Had really good numbers. Was playing well, competing. Defense was one of my strongest points, and I was making shots, and all of it seemed to be going in the right direction where I was going to make the final roster and have a great WNBL career. But it didn't end up working out that way. The WNBA at the time had just limited their roster from 13 athletes to 11. They were having some money issues, the league itself, and so they were only holding 11 players per team as opposed to 13. And I was one of the very last cuts for 2 years in a row. And at the time, it was deflating. I had put in so much work. I was playing some of the best basketball I've ever played in my career, and it almost felt like it still wasn't good enough. And fast forward it now to my life right now. If I had played in the WNBA, I would have never met my husband. I would have never been out in Australia. I would have never been able to run the company the way that I'm running it now. And so I look at that as I was able to get through that deflatedness, continue my basketball career, continue to travel the world. Was in France, was in Spain for 5 years, came to Australia, ended up meeting my husband here in Australia, played here, grew the company here. I have 1.5 kids now that I'm 8 months pregnant at the moment right now, but I have my beautiful daughter, and none of that is possible if I make the WNBA because I'm still in America and I don't come to Australia in my off season. And so in the moment, I could never have seen or foreseen the positives that were coming out of my perceived failure at the time. And it wasn't a matter of talent. I was a very strong player. I trained with WNBA players. I competed against them. I have a lot of friends who couldn't believe that I wasn't in the league, but it just wasn't my path. And I look back and I'm grateful that I didn't make it because I was able to figure out what I wanted to do after basketball. And I was able to build that rapport and success throughout the years of playing in Europe, and then meeting people that I would have never came across from any other way. So it's one of those situations where I looked at it as a failure in the moment. I was able to continue through that perceived failure, and in the hindsight, I'm just beyond grateful that my life panned out the way that it did.
Yeah, and it literally was probably one of the best things that ever happened to you as well.
Ever happened to me.
Yeah,
Absolutely. It's in the moment. You could have never told me that, telling me at 23 years old that this is the best thing that ever happened to you, failing and not making the top league in women's basketball. I would have slapped you in the face and called you an idiot. But it absolutely was. And I'm so grateful that I was able to move through the pain of not feeling as if I was a failure, and move through it and continue my journey, continue to play, continue to develop as an athlete, continue to develop as a human. And it's been the journey that I was meant to be on, the path I was meant to be on, and I'm grateful for it.
yeah. No, I love that because it's sort of the way I see it is as you're explaining that as well as you could relate that story even if you just sort of zoom out, you could relate it to someone playing a game, trying to win, or they're working towards a goal, and suddenly they just have this moment where they feel like they've failed or they feel like
Mm-hmm.
they've just gone backwards when really they haven't. They're just being pushed towards something better, and it
Yes.
may be a bad quarter, for example, but the next quarter they'll probably learn from that first quarter and they either end up winning the game or getting really close to it.
Absolutely. So you have the macro component of it, you have the micro component of it, where if you can recognize that in the moment, it changes the energy that you're putting out, the headspace that you're in, and you're able to make adjustments within a game setting. On the life scale of things, the macro scale of things, it's if you're able to within your sadness, your failure, all of that, just continue to move, continue to be on your journey. You'll find that success is usually around the corner from failure.
Yeah. And am I right in saying that this can happen to the best of people? And I'm just thinking of tennis, right? I think of Djokovic,
Mm,
one of the best tennis players in the world, if not the best. And you see him during his game. Not that I watch heaps of tennis, but when I do watch
I love
when I
tennis.
watch him play, he's sort of you can notice if he's not having a good, I don't even know what it's called, but let's call it a set. If he's not having a good set or he's not playing that well, he'll sort of stop for a second. Or during the breaks, you'll see him talking to his coach, or
Mm,
and you think, but then you think, hold on a sec, this guy's like the best in the world. Why does he need someone else to tell him what to do? But then I just think
mm,
even the best players need someone there, and I mean, you've probably worked with the best of the best players as well. Are their issues the same as a rookie, for example? And when I say
yes,
issues, I mean their errors or the things they go through,
yes.
or the thought process.
Absolutely. Some of the differences are that you've gone through so much failure that you no longer consider it failure. Um, you've gone through so many losses that it's no longer a quote unquote failure. It's simply the next step, right? And so it's all about your perspective. So a young athlete who hasn't lost a game, they lose a game and they don't know how to handle it because they've never been in that situation. It's the same feeling as a vet athlete who loses a game, but because they've lost before, they're able to have a different perspective on the loss and move forward. Some young athletes consider it like, oh, I'm going to quit. I'm going to give up. I'm not good enough. I'm not this. I'm not that. As opposed to understanding like you win some, you lose some. It's a part of the process. Respect the process and continue to move. And you will find that your failures are creating your successes. They go hand in hand. You can't have one without the other. And and some of the older athletes still struggle with it on a day-to-day basis, but through experience you usually create a lot more confidence within those moments. But from my experience, everyone deals with it and everyone deals with it on their own level. Some young athletes are very mature and are able to process things a bit quicker than some of the older athletes. It's male, female, young, old. It's not one size fits all. I've seen it all. I've coached them all, and it's always interesting, and it's always a very individual development. It's really just each person has their own way of processing.
Yeah, and as you're explaining that, honestly, I'm thinking of a journey that a client of mine would go through with investing or business where they'll fail, and
Mm,
and it's just sticking to the plan, like what you said, respecting the process, and just
respect the
sticking to the
process. Yeah.
strategy. We use the course in investing of stay the course. Yes, things will pop up, but if you stay the course, think long term. Thanks for joining us on Sharing More Than the Sheets. Please make sure you subscribe to be updated with future episode releases, and feel free to share this episode with any friends or family that you think it might benefit. Please visit us at sharingmorethanthesheets.com.au to submit questions or requests for future podcast topics. These podcasts have been brought to you by Better Financial Planning Australia. To book a 15-minute phone chat, visit betterfinancialplanning.com.au.